All right. So let's see here. Linux Labs. Where were we? Fedora. Fedora Server 38 install in VirtualBox. What we've got here is kind of where we left off last time. The two Ubuntu machines are powered off. I'll go ahead and turn them on real quick. Actually, I'll wait till after the install. Have all my CPU power available for that. I'd mentioned that Fedora is one of my favorites whenever I'm working in the lab, but I've been using Ubuntu. I went to try and set up FreeIPA in the lab. Not heard of that. It's sort of like Active Directory, but for Linux. You can use it for all kinds of different things, but LDAP, Kerberos, certificates, DNS integration, all kinds of cool stuff. You can even build trusts between it and Active Directory. But that's getting into a whole other topic. So I use FreeIPA in the lab, and Ubuntu 2204 didn't seem to have a FreeIPA package available. It's had it before. I've used it on Ubuntu. I've used it on Debian. But when I went looking, I found some bug lists and things like that, upstream issues, upgrade problems. It seemed like it may not be available in Ubuntu in the near future. I don't know. That may be different now. Don't burn me down if that's changed by the time you've heard this. But not wanting to mess with it, I was like, let me check out Fedora. Fedora being upstream from Red Hat, as I've mentioned previously, they keep FreeIPA in pretty good working order with the system and managing all of the dependencies that it's got. The direct upstream, or I should say downstream, upstream, I don't know. Red Hat has an identity management product called Red Hat IDM that I'll pull these up actually, FreeIPA. This is freeipa.org. You can read about what FreeIPA is. They've got a ton of good documentation. If you're trying to do something with it, make sure you're looking at the right version of the documentation. Sometimes it's unclear, and I've fought a problem for an hour to find out I was looking at version 3 docs when I had a version 4 server, or version 4 docs when I had a version 3 server. So I'm pretty particular there. But as you're looking through those docs, if you also look at the Red Hat identity management documentation, you can dig in here under the install and compare these commands they've got. And they're the same as FreeIPA. It's the same product. So Red Hat cares for this one within the ecosystem. So it's generally always in working order on Fedora, on CentOS Stream, and within Red Hat if you've got that developer subscription, and they're always available there. Anyway, needing FreeIPA in the lab, I thought let's just go ahead and put Fedora 38 back in the lab. There's no rule that says you can't have Ubuntu servers and Fedora servers and Alpine servers and Windows servers all playing together in the same lab. So we're going to go to fedoraproject.org, grab that download now for Fedora Server and the Fedora Server 38 DVD ISO. I'll put download here. Get some information for verifying it on that tab if you want to check that out. Make sure you're getting a valid image. I've already got the download, so I'm just going to move on to the install. Let's see here. VirtualBox, I've opened this up here. I'm going to leave those two off and we'll just hit new, just like we did the other day. Fedora. Let's see here. Did I version the others? No. So just 01. Select our ISO image. Dun-dun. Next here. I'll leave this 2048 this time, but I'm going to bump that up to at least 2 CPUs. I don't like running VMs with a single CPU in a lab because generally I'm doing something with it and I want it to be a little responsive. Next here, I'll bump this up to 25 gigs. We do still have that pre-allocate full size unchecked, so it's not consuming 35 gigs, my bad, on disk. It's just going to consume whatever information we write into the VM. Next here, Do the full redo. Did I spell everything right? Yeah, we're good. Finish. Power this on. Start, normal start, or you can just click the button up here. Oop. You have to dig around in the docs and figure out how to make these things stop popping up. Well, maybe that does it. Oh, that's my menu. We want to install Fedora 38. Let me scoot this over a little bit. Right control to unlock that mouse. Click back in there. And off we go. If you remember in the Ubuntu install, it was fairly texty. Darn, I didn't get it. Oh, just back over again. Fedora, CentOS, and Red Hat installs since around version 6, I think, maybe even 5. I've been a nice little GUI. When I switched from Debian to CentOS, I was like, whoa, what is this? I have a mouse and everything. So that was kind of neat. This is your language and everything. I'm going to keep my defaults. Let's see here. Keyboard would be if you need to change your language settings and all that right there. Time and date. Production systems, I usually go UTC. I leave mine set for the center of the US here. Fedora Server Edition. On the VM, I click into that, and we're going to go with guest agents. That lets the VM we're installing behave a little bit better with the hypervisor normally. I don't know if that integrates with VirtualBox, but it's handy in VMware and libvirt, maybe even Hyper-V. I've never run it. Let's see here. That. Create our admin user. Oop. I'm going to leave this for DHCP right now. Talk about IPs and stuff here in a moment because we're going to want to connect all of these guys together. If I just clicked on the storage configuration, I'm going to click on custom, and then I'm going to click on something to have it automatically do it. There's a long reason why I do that, but I don't want to get into it now and get us off track. Now you'll notice that the later Fedora editions here, it's also only consuming a portion of the space that we allocated to the drive. I'm going to hit modify right there. I like to name this volume group 00, VJ00. I like to change the size policy from automatic to as large as possible. This will let me see kind of the free space. I've got 19 gigs free. Generally, you'd create like /home and then throw, 10 gig. Oop. Cursor's acting funky. Hit insert, there we go. 10 gigabytes. And then anything mounted under that would be like our home directories and things. It protects you from filling up the root disk down here by having these separate partitions. Lab stuff doesn't matter right now. We can get into that in another lesson. 15, 19, 25. No, we did 35 plus on minus 2 for BIOS and boot. 23? 33. Go math skills. I'm actually going to drop that to 30. Date settings. And I am going to add a separate temp. That's a little small. Let me drop to 25. Date settings. /TMP. Gonna make 5 gigabytes. I'll leave it like that. We've got 4 spare free gigs for LVM snapshots and things later. I'm doing this so that since temp is usually world writable, uh, it anyone can write to it, so you don't want it to be on the same partition as root, because then you can have anyone fill up your root partition just by writing trash into temp. If temp is separate, they can fill up temp, but filling up temp is generally only going to affect there's some database things it could affect if you're using temp tables, but it usually won't break the world. So anyway, I digress. Keeping that a little free, click done. It's going to be like, oh no, we're going to destroy all this stuff. As long as you're on a VM, doesn't matter. Don't do this kind of thing on a regular device that you want to keep data on by any means, except those changes. Did I miss anything? Network type is on. Yeah. All right. Good. This is going to do its thing. When it finishes, I'll have the reboot system thing light up there, and we'll reboot and be off into the races. While this is going, I had mentioned the IP address earlier. I'm going to leave it DHCP, blah, blah, blah. I'm planning to record how to set static IPs on Fedora and Ubuntu in the next video that I record. So you'll need a little bit of understanding about IP addressing if you want to follow along. You won't need it in this particular video, but I figure I'll kill the install time here by yakking on the topic and kind of telling y'all what's coming. So if you're not familiar with an IP address is kind of like a phone number for your device on the network. In this case, the device being the VMs that we're working with. Your computer that you're running VirtualBox on has an IP. Other devices in your home, your phone, all that stuff, they've got IP addresses. And generally, if they're on the same network, Wi-Fi, plugged in, however they're connected, they can all talk to one another. They may have device firewalls and all kinds of other things going on, but the network itself would facilitate that ability. Let's see here. So you've got the IP address on there that allows the devices to communicate. IP stands for Internet Protocol, and it's kind of like the language or the rules which govern how data is transmitted over the internet. The address part of the IP address is just a numerical label. There's version 4 and version 6. You'll hear that referred to as IPv4, IPv6, and they look very, very different. For our purposes in the lab, generally I'll stick to IPv4 unless I'm going to be doing an IPv6 specific networking lab, but I can't imagine our lab aspirations will reach that point for a while. So now you need to know a bit about static IP versus a dynamic IP, right? Static IP is an IP that you configure on the device, and you set it, and it stays there. It doesn't change. It's kind of like having a permanent home address, where you receive your mail. Everybody knows where you're at. They just send it to you. You're going to be there. It's reliable for consistent connections. You've got dynamic IP addresses, on the other hand. Also, heard me earlier refer to that as a DHCP IP address. They're more temporary, and they can change from time to time. Specifically, if a device is off the network for a little while, and then you put it back on, you probably are going to get a new address if other devices have been coming and going. There's a lot of things that boil into that, but it's all DHCP server configuration. For lab stuff, you kind of want both. Like, you're going to want some services running on a machine that's consistently reachable, and you may have services that can come up, start, and run on a dynamic IP, and they may do their work in a pull fashion, so you don't need to know where they always are. You can just set them up, they do their job, and then they go away. I'm going to, at some point, probably after the static IP lesson, do some stuff on DNS, do some stuff on DHCP. So the IP address information here and any other information you can get your hands on for it. They've got some great Wikipedia pages on it. Internet Protocol version 4, way more information than I can cover here. IPv6, this gets even deeper. But if you're into the science side of things, these two articles on Wikipedia will link over to RFCs, requests for comment, and those get into kind of all of the things that underpin these protocols to the deepest level. You know, how the packets are built, what they look like on the wire, everything. So yeah, all of that's there. Where are we at here? All right, we've completed. Got that. Fedora successfully installed. Get our reboot system here, and we'll have a machine ready to go. Check my notes here, make sure I haven't missed anything. I got a lot more attention on that previous video than I expected. I thank everybody for that. So if you're enjoying the content, if you've got questions about it and you've got specific things you want me to cover, throw them in the comments. We can get a conversation going and I'll find a way to fit them into the lab stream here. So I'm going to be doing static IPs next, and then we'll get into DNS servers because you want to be able to call things by name. We'll go through that. And then from there, I'm not quite sure. You log in here and we'll get some base configuration on this machine and get it updated. Let's see here. This being Fedora, it's going to use a different update program. And that -y means just update it. Don't even ask me about it. You'd go out to the internet, grab all of the things. This will get your security updates, software updates. I kind of bring the Fedora edition up to the very latest edition of Fedora Server 38. Well, we're going to need to move this over on the network as well because I left that to the default. Let me let this finish. It's actually doing some downloads and we'll swap that over. I'm on the Fedora side over here in the actual VirtualBox Manager window. Settings on that, network. We're going to change this NAT over to bridged adapter, and I'm just going to let that hang out with the OK for a minute. I don't want to forget to do it. Oh, interesting. It changes. That was a behavior I hadn't seen before. It's nice that 24 years into the career, I can still be surprised, that kind of thing. Looks like the update here is going to take a bit of time. Let me see if I can cover anything else. DHCP services, I'd mentioned that. That's what hands out the dynamic IPs. Generally, your home router, if you're doing this on a machine that's connected to that, would be handling your DHCP services. I have a DHCP server on my home network. I've got a DHCP server on my lab network. And sometimes I create one-off DHCP servers in isolated network VLANs just to test things as they might be in a production environment or to force like pass-through of security devices. All kinds of weird analytic stuff like that. I geek out. Come on, updates. Looks like we got about a minute left to go here. Keep the changes. Still doing the downloads. Anything interesting here we could cover? I'm a big fan of finding what Red Hat's doing and then going and finding the upstream version. We're messing around in virtualization, right? Let me see. Let me not clutter this one up too much. We'll stick with the installation. The other ones ran a bit faster on the Ubuntu side because I'm actually running a Nexus 3 caching server so that when I do these updates, it passes through that caching server, and the first machine that does them will download that data, and the caching server will hang on to it here on my network. And then the next update I do, it passes through, like from a different machine even. The caching machine will intercept that request, and it downloads them from my network instead of having to tax my direct internet connection again. Family here, I'm sure, enjoys that when I'm trying to update 15 machines all at once in the lab, burn through all of the internet connectivity here. Netflix starts skipping. People's YouTube music starts bumping along. Nexus 3 cache. Solve the problem. Yes, I can fire these other ones up. So this is what we're going to start with in the next video. I won't actually get started with it, but we're going to start. Sometimes if you start too many of these at once, you'll get weird errors. Oh, did we just get one actually? It's like it's okay. It'll dump a bunch of garbage on the screen and just halt. Like, what happens? Is it still booting? I don't know. A lot of times when that does happen, sometimes your only option is to come in and where's it at? Back in that main screen. Yeah, you can just like power it off, power it back on, force it to stop. Generally, the VMs will survive it, but like if you're in the lab and you're working with databases and stuff like that, it can be a pain in the butt. It can corrupt data. Yeah. All right, this is where we'll start in the next one. I finished the downloads, doing the installs now. I can probably go ahead and swap this. Let's find out. Doesn't seem to have freaked out. Wonder if I can get to another terminal. Oh, I can. I just hit Alt and F2. The Alt and F1, it should be, back on the other one. These are Linux virtual terminals. Alt F2 through like F6 are usually the defaults, and then the ones up here, if you're running a graphical console, like if you've got Fedora on your laptop, these would be the X Windows terminals. And it's been so long since I've messed with that. That upper part may not be accurate anymore, but the lower part here works. We can actually close up my soft keyboard there, log in here. We can do some other things if we wanted. And all this is I look at a who. I'm logged in on TTY1 and TTY2. TTY1 being my Alt F1 screen. Can I do that? Oh, it does take a direct keyboard input. Oh, and our updates have finished. So I can come back here. I can exit. Alt F1 here again. If your keyboard doesn't do like that, you can go back up here like I did the first time. Input, keyboard, soft keyboard. That's how I got this thing to pop up, and I just clicked what I wanted. Little button lights up showing you've got Alt selected. F1, Alt F2, we've logged out. Alt F1, close the keyboard. Let's see here. It's been so long I'm messing with Ubuntu that now I'm having trouble with my NMCLI commands. Yeah. Oh, it must not have changed. Now we're talking. 146. I'm making a note over here. The way that DHCP works, the leases generally from the DHCP server will remain with the machine for a little while, 5 minutes, hour, 24 hours. It's a setting your admins can set on the DHCP server. So I was getting it as IP to find out what it's probably going to boot up and have next time. Close this out. Oh, let me shut the machine down. Oop. All right. Don't get y'all started with bad habits right off, right? We were shutting it down. IP. The IPs for these. And it shows it right there, right hand side of the screen, about midway up, next to the ENP or IPv4 address for Ubuntu 01. That's not a confusing IP address at all, right? 192.168.169.168. Thanks, DHCP server. Let's see here. Shut this down. And pop into this one. Or shut it down. Now we're shutting those down to start them back up again. And we'll do that in the next video. And we'll do so by doing start and headless start. And I'll catch the rest of them in the next one. Hopefully that all made sense, and I'll see you in a short.